Hey folks, these Tuesday posts are reposts of our first ever movie-themed podcast, The Documenteers, a documentary-themed show that ran from 2016 to around 2020. So that means this episode originally dropped almost a decade ago. I took down the old feed last year with the idea of making it premium content along with other stuff, but life happened and the projector's format changed and the post amount dropped. Though we are still doing projectors episodes when we're ready to discuss a chunk of films, but not as consistently as we were. I haven't heard these Documenteers episodes in a while. What I have heard back, I admit I cringe at myself a bit, but anything I do I will absolutely hate later on. It's just how it is for me. The Documenteers was pretty goofy and featured rotating secondary hosts. It did make its connections with people and remains our most well-known podcast to date. So maybe you're listening for the first time, or for the first time in a long time. Welcome. These Documenteers episodes will also be thrown onto YouTube for the first time. But it will be a static image because it was only a podcast. But you can also go to YouTube to listen to these as they drop. There are almost 200 episodes total, so these weekly reposts will be continuing for a while. We hope you like them and see how we've changed over the years. I know I certainly have, so let's get into the episode so you can hear me embarrass myself. Keep on, Doc.
Hello, Doculos and Doculettes, the Docugues and Doculettes. Welcome to another thrilling episode of the Documenteers, the podcast about documentaries where we parse through, laugh at them sometimes, review them, and hit them with the Herzog hammer. Herzog hammer being our rating system. I am your primary host, Bob Sham, for this episode this week. Akil, one of our newest Documenteers, returns, and we get more into the nerdy side of things. Akil and I, we grew up loving comic books, and everyone's got a nerd interest. All this nerd stuff is huge now, and this movie is about a nerd thing that failed at a time when it was actually very hard to get nerd shit done. We're talking about the film The Death of Superman Lives. What Happened? Yeah, that's the full title, by director Jon Schnepp, partially funded by Kickstarter. And it is about a Tim Burton-directed Superman movie that starred Nicolas Cage that never happened. And it features a nerd angle. There is a nerd interest angle, but there's also a true Hollywood story angle, too. There is a little bit of a discussion. The comparisons and contrasts of where we're at today. It seems like all the movies are comic book movies now. But this, which took place starting in 96, was like pulling teeth to get anything done. And yeah, nerd culture, I can't deny that there's some of it. I love all those Marvel movies. I do like comic book movies. Those characters have been around for generations, but admittedly, I'm getting a little bored with a lot of the pop culture saturation out there. I'm a little worried that there's not enough originality out there. It's all these people getting on podcast mics talking about shit they've never made, and it's getting so tight. Oh wait, am I talking about myself? Oh, okay. Well, you can contact us at places like an email, documenteerspodcast@gmail.com. We have social networks that admittedly I'm not great at, but I'm trying to get the ball rolling on them. Seek us out on there at Twitter. Got a Facebook fan page that Angela runs. Instagram's probably the hottest. Help me learn how to use Twitter, please. I'd really appreciate it. Also, 5 stars and a review on iTunes. We don't want your money. We want your 5 stars, and we want a review. And you can definitely review us on iTunes and give us 5 stars on any app you listen to, really. We'd really appreciate it, and we love your support. We don't want your money. We just want a minute of your time. And also subscriptions and recommendations, and telling all your film nerd friends about this cool podcast about documentaries. And we do want to seriously go through these movies, but we also want to have a good time at the same time. So, yeah, I love you. I just wanted to say that. I love you. Let's get into this movie, The Death of Superman Lives. What Happened? By Jon Schnepp. Keep on docking.
Now, here is a motion picture film. 1,000 feet. 16,000 separate photographs. Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel.
Nerds, geeks, sweaties. Look how far we've come. We rule the world. But it wasn't always this way. Let's go back to a time when there was no comic book cinematic universe.
It's you. No, it's iced coffee. What if I had just a bunch of Yoo-Hoo in a mason jar?
I don't know what you do when I'm not here, man.
You like Yoo-Hoo?
Yeah, I haven't had it in I don't know how many years, but I'm not opposed to drinking a Yoo-Hoo. Like, it's a Yoo-Hoo.
I drank them more when I was a kid and always drank them very quickly. A Yoo-Hoo wasn't a sip thing to me. No. I would chug it.
I never drank Yoo-Hoo as a kid.
But it's fucking chocolate water.
Basically.
Is Yoo-Hoo all over the country? I'm asking you these questions like you should know. And I have no reason to think that you would know.
Based on my experience with Yoo-Hoo and traveling around the country, no, I'm pretty sure it's pretty well broadcast.
Do people like Yoo-Hoo? I don't think I ever see anyone drinking.
It's still around. Somebody's drinking it.
Somebody's drinking it.
Well, it's not one of those things you just like stand outside and chug.
Is it one
it's not, it's Yoo-Hoo. Like, you don't drink Yoo-Hoo to quench your thirst.
Well, when you drink a Yoo-Hoo, you want to show it off to the whole parking lot of the gas station. Yeah, like pose just right, logo out for anyone walking in. And when you finish it, you do a very audible, ah.
That's the correct response. Drinking a Yoo-Hoo, I really don't. It's probably going to be a belch or a kind of internal, I think I've had maybe 6 Yoo-Hoos in my entire life.
Yeah, they're not something I'm like, I just gotta get a Yoo-Hoo. My favorite soda is a soda. I don't know if this is across the country. I'd love for listeners you can let me know at documenteerspodcast@gmail.com. But Squirt, soda Squirt.
Yeah, that's like the kind of like a mix between a Sprite and a Mountain Dew.
It's grapefruit soda.
Yeah,
it's specifically grapefruit.
It's like Fresca.
Is Fresca a grapefruit?
Fresca's a grapefruit soda.
That tastes weird to me. It tastes totally different.
They do. I think Squirt's got some lemon lime-ness to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Fresca is just more of this is a grapefruit soda.
I hope that soda's around the country as well. It could be
sure it's regional. I feel like
there's
it's
a lot
regional.
of southern sodas you only get in the South.
What's the our version of Mellow Yellow? Is it Dewdrop? Sundrop? Sundrop is totally
Sundrop,
original.
I think that is.
I mean, that's out of Pulaski.
I remember as a kid.
Pulaski is the home of Sundrop and the KKK.
Pass up Sundrop. Go for a Squirt.
I'm not saying the Sundrop isn't anywhere related to the KKK.
They could be. Is Sundrop related?
Sundrop's going to be tweeting.
Sundrop is, no, you're supposed to say, Sundrop is allegedly connected to the KKK. As long as you say allegedly, you can say whatever you want.
Maybe Roseanne was drinking some Sundrop at 2 a.m. in the morning when she tweeted.
Oh, yeah. Didn't she say she took an Ambien?
Yeah.
My grandma used to take Ambien and would randomly call people. But it wasn't ever anything offensive. She was just muttering nonsense and no one knew what she was talking about.
Did you see the tweet that whatever the pharmaceutical company that makes Ambien, did you see their tweet about the side effects not including racism? I was like, well played, Ambien.
I was trying to think back to the history of Roseanne after this because that original show back in the day.
I love that show.
That's one. I still think it's one of the best sitcoms that ever was.
And I'm hoping that it doesn't get because it's been in rotation on I don't know Antenna TV or BT, something on one of those broadcasts. Is it UHF or VHF? That's the non-network major network, but it's probably been pulled at this point.
John Goodman and Laurie Metcalf, those are amazing actors right there.
Yeah.
It sucks that Roseanne just burned the whole shit for everyone.
Well, I mean, for them, though, their careers are going to be fine. I mean, they're actually, Laurie Metcalf's won an Oscar at this point.
Yeah, she's in Lady Bird,
the fact that she even came back to do this show was kind of surprising to me. But,
But she's fantastic. She's one of the most underrated actors out there.
Yeah, hands down. I was glad she finally won an Oscar. I think she's won a Tony too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, and didn't she win Emmys for Roseanne? I feel like she did.
I would not be surprised. I don't track the award stuff, but she should because Aunt Jackie's one of the best characters.
They should. There's little memes out about just calling it Jackie. Just killing off Roseanne's character.
Yeah, I would watch an Aunt Jackie spinoff for sure.
Yeah,
boy, Aunt Jackie's been through some shit. Remember Fisher?
Oh,
that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, Roseanne's she was a funny person. She kind of always instinctively had that angle, but She always was kind of weird. There was a point where she was really new agey or something, maybe not long after the show ended. And I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while, but I heard once that she made a claim on camera that she remembers being beaten or molested when she's like 1.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff.
And it's like no one remembers that. Yeah. No one remembers being 1, but it seemed odd, like she would just make claims.
Yeah, and I know she said that she has publicly said like multiple times that she's bipolar. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Oh, yeah.
She seems to also be very susceptible to changes. Like sweeping lifestyle changes.
At one point, she had a reality show for a bit.
Yeah.
And she owned some kind of nut farm, like a pistachio farm or something like that. And then she had a daytime talk show for a short period of time. I don't even think it lasted a season.
Roseanne 88 would not be up on a fucking nut farm.
No.
So it's like, what's going on? And there is something in her head that's turning her life on a dime. And I think... But it's probably turned on a dime several times.
Oh, yeah.
Since then and now.
I mean, if you look at just all the crazy stuff she did back then.
Yeah. But Squirt. I know the title of the drink, I think the notion of the squirt, it has different ramifications in modern language. But this soda is called Squirt. I want to see commercials for Squirt.
That'll never happen.
And I want Squirt fans to own up to how much they love Squirt.
It's hard to find Squirt.
All I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of squirters out there. And they've got a soda they love.
I dated one many years ago. It was an amazing time in my life.
God bless Texas.
Yeah, man. We always know you're doing a good job, right?
Yeah, I guess.
God bless America. United Squirters of America. We are talking about a movie that I saw about when it came out. I noticed this is partially funded by Kickstarter. Did you contribute to the Kickstarter?
I did not. I totally would have given mine to the Veronica Mars movie.
This movie, it pulled me in a couple of directions. I did think there was a lot of good things about this movie.
I did too.
There are things that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And then there were other things that I stereotypically don't like, that maybe I don't think this movie did it in the worst way possible, but still enough that it kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
I got a lot of questions for it, but I've got some compliments as well. There's actually 1,000 stories a lot like this, but I think because this involves a property that's so iconic, it's just one that makes itself come out, and that iconic property that we can all think of, even your grandma, if you say Superman, like Superman will pop in your grandma's head and it'll pretty much be Superman, like that everyone knows.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
But this is the weird story of a Superman film that never got made. This is a documentary about a movie failing. So it's not just a documentary about these people's perspectives on a character, which is interesting, but it's also about how difficult a movie can be made. And this movie is coming through a transitional period where we got these Batman movies, and we're not quite at the X-Men Spider-Man era that kicks off all the superhero movies we get today.
Yeah, it's that weird in-between era where no one really knew whether they wanted to keep doing those kinds of movies.
Even there was occasionally superhero-themed movies in the 90s. The era we're in now is like separated from that time, because I guess your Spider-Man and the X-Men movie kind of showed it kind of coming to the next level visually. And traditionally, comic book properties would go through a lot of rigmarole and often would just fall apart. People messing with licenses and options. And
I used to read so many articles in Wizard magazine about comic book properties that were being brought to the either television or to the big screen that never happened.
Yeah. For years, James Cameron was supposed to direct the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think that took a long time for it to ultimately just tank. In this movie, I remember reading about the behind the scenes of this movie through Wizard magazine, the comic magazine, because I love comics. I have all my life. And you do too. And so I was about a teenager, you're a little older. So we were reading about all this shit. So when Kevin Smith was writing a script for a movie called Superman Lives, we were reading about him talking about writing the script for this movie at that time.
And you also got to understand the context of where Kevin Smith was as far as the mindsets of people like us.
Yes.
I mean, this was like the comic book nerd that made good kind of thing. I mean, at that point, he had made, Mallrats,
Clerks, Chasing Amy. This guy, I think there's a post Chasing Amy
I think he was actually shooting Was it Chasing Amy or was it?
I think there's a post Chasing Amy pre-Dogma.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was very new to the game, and I think Chasing Amy delivered a lot of buzz. This is about around his peak time.
Yeah.
And I think he's at a successful place now. He's kind of established his own corner of the universe.
Yeah. So, I mean, but at this point, this was big news for comic book nerds.
Yes.
Like, wow, this is a guy who actually gets it writing a script for what will hopefully be a really awesome movie. Because they were just coming off the Quest for Peace at that point.
When was Quest for Peace made?
87, I think, 88.
Okay.
It was late 80s.
But we'd had like Batman and shit, which this dude, John Peters, he's the producer who was involved in the attempt of Superman Lives.
That guy.
He was involved in those Batman movies, the Tim Burton ones, and I don't know if he produced the Joel Schumacher ones. He didn't claim it if he did.
Why would he?
Yeah, right. He seemed. You got a feeling this guy edits a lot of his life, and he's not.
Oh yeah,
and he's pretty comfortable talking about himself a lot. This dude's like a stereotype of Hollywood scumbaggery.
He is. I actually know quite a bit about John Peters because of my love for Barbra Streisand. So I've read a lot about this guy through learning about her and biography.
He was her hairdresser.
His story is pretty fucking amazing. He literally went from her hairdresser to dating her to using her connections to start to connect with people in Hollywood and started producing movies.
Wow.
He did a lot of really successful movies.
He's really good at using people like a walkway.
Yeah, but he has that reputation of being the stereotypical brass balls, like aggressive Hollywood producer kind of guy.
Who admittedly is not a big reader.
Can John Peters read? That's the first thing that popped into my mind.
John Peters doesn't have time to read because he's too busy obsessing over his own masculinity and the masculinity of everyone around him. It's like a big theme in this guy's brain. I think maybe it comes from he used to be a hairdresser, so he feels like now he's overcompensating for hairdressing.
Probably. We can talk about it. I could tell you some stuff about John Peters, but
look, we're talking about the documentary from 2015, The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? By John Schnepp. I got a problem right one with this movie.
The title.
Yeah. You got a good title right here. It says The Death of Superman Lives. That's punchy.
What happened? Actually did not realize that was part of the official title until I rewatched it.
This is the second time I've seen it. I saw it around when it first came out. And to me, it's just called The Death of Superman Lives. But yeah, when finding it, there's like a colon. What happened? Boy, this title's too good. Can we add something to it? That dumbs it down just a little bit.
Let's punch that up a little bit. It's even got its own font.
John Schnepp, he's been an actor, he's a producer, director. He's messed with a lot of Adult Swim stuff. Has done a lot of work on the show Metalocalypse. Pretty prolific on that one. Yeah, I love that one too. He also messes with animation and shit too. So we did a geek movie called Nintendo Quest it was a Kickstarter movie about a guy who's looking for all the Nintendo games, and his buddy who created the movie felt the need to formally establish a setup narrative for it in front of like stands of Nintendo merchandise to be like, I'm going to explain what Nintendo is. I don't think this movie has that problem, but it was kind of weird in that regard because it's a Kickstarter movie and the people who are giving you money already know about Nintendo. So why are you explaining
the only people who are going to watch that documentary are people who are obsessed with Nintendo.
And even me who, I like video games. I wouldn't say I'm obsessive. But, maybe certain games.
But you don't need, you don't need a history of...
But I kind of automatically knew the history because I was alive through, 3/4 of it. But he kind of does that too. But John Schnepp also feels the need. It's like the geek style of documentary filmmaking is that the director has to get in front of the camera and be like, so, these are the times that were going on here and during this time here. And now, let's get into the movie.
Let me set up the narrative.
Now, Schnepp is, he's all in this movie. I don't know if it's as annoying as the Spurlockian method of doing it. You see John Schnepp throughout the movie talking to certain people, and they're side by side in a room, and John Schnepp is in frame talking to certain people. Not as much with John Peters. I noticed that the camera was just kind of a lot on his face, on his top half of his body. But with the Tim Burton interviews, it seemed like John Schnepp was like, yeah, I'm in the room with Tim Burton. So every one of those shots were like full of Schnepp and Burton.
There are hardly no shots of just Burton. Him and Kevin Smith fly side by sides. And Tim Burton. So you can tell that he's approaching this from a fanboy point of view.
And sometimes the fanboys are the ones that are going to get things like this done. But sometimes the fanboys need to kind of like chill. Need to chill a little bit. Because you got this story to tell, and he does have the elements to tell this story, and this is a good story in terms of what happens. It's one of those weird Hollywood stories involving an iconic character, but we see him interviewing fans, and they're ragging on the concept of a Superman movie where Nicolas Cage is playing Superman, because that's what this movie is going to be. A Nicolas Cage Superman, where he dies, he gets killed by the villain Doomsday. He comes back, and I think Brainiac's supposed to be in it and shit. This is where we're going.
Really a lot of characters in it.
Yeah,
There's different phases of the script, rewrites.
John Schnepp's interviewing fans, and they're all ragging on the concept of this movie. Like, this would have been a bad, terrible movie.
Actually, I will admit, the beginning of the movie, because he specifically talks to, I guess he finds 3 fans at a con, each of them wearing a different kind of Superman t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And you got one person who is very much... Nick Cage's would be horrible. That movie, so glad it never got made. There's one guy who thinks it would have been an awesome idea, would love to see it. And then there's one guy that's sort of kind of interested. It sounded like it would be kind of weird, but he's a little bit interested in seeing it just from a curiosity standpoint.
He went with the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears.
Exactly.
Strategy of let's see the fan perspective.
And then got the prerequisite, pose of all 3 of them together.
And he gets Jimmy Palmiotti on it. Which is, wow, that's huge. I'm so sorry. I'm kidding. I like Jimmy Palmiotti.
Was Joe Quesada not available?
Like, if you haven't read comics for like 30 years, the Jimmy, I guess how would you know who Jimmy Palmiotti was?
You wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. But he's a prominent inker and writer.
Yeah.
He's actually been co-writing Harley Quinn for years.
Yeah, it was Amanda Connor, I think.
But
he invented, what's his name? Ash? Is that the character?
Well, I think he co-created it with
Quesada, yeah.
Joe Quesada, now Chief Creative Officer of Marvel, former Editor-in-Chief, former comic book artist. Well, he still
does from time to time.
Jimmy Palmiotti says he thought it would have been a cool idea, and he cites my favorite David Lynch movie as an example of why Nick Cage would have been interesting, the movie Wild at Heart.
Look like a clown in that stupid jacket.
This is a snakeskin jacket. And for me, it's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom. Asshole.
Which, I like that movie quite a bit. It is my favorite David Lynch movie.
I don't think I have ever actually seen a David Lynch movie before.
Well, if you ever want to walk down that weird road, just let me know.
He's just one of those directors where, I know who he is. At some point, I'll get around to watching something, surely.
And Grant Morrison is in this movie. He's one of my favorite writers. He talks about the idea of Superman Lives and how it was reminiscent of a lot of the more over-the-top qualities of comic book movies at the time. The weird Batman, the neon Batman of the later years.
They included The Mask in that clip, which I thought was actually a well-done comic book movie, personally. With my limited knowledge of The Mask, I never really read The Mask.
I maybe watched that a couple times. I don't know. I don't know if that holds up. The John Schnepp contribution, he can identify that The Mask is, yes, a comic book movie.
Right.
It could be played into an example of it. And I think that's kind of what the good part of the fanboy aspect of it is you can make sure that the references to things are correct. The sources are cited properly or whatever.
Because most people wouldn't get that reference. They wouldn't know that The Mask was originally a comic book character.
They talk about how when Bryan Singer was making Superman Returns, which seemed like a spiritual sequel to the old Christopher Reeves movies.
I like that spiritual sequel.
I didn't write that down. When people would rag on the costume of the outside underpants that Superman, the red underpants that Superman would wear, that Bryan Singer would pull out a picture of Nicolas Cage, and it looks like a Polaroid quality, wearing the Superman test suit, and he looks like half stoned. Like my favorite pictures of those test pictures are he looks high as fuck, and he's just wearing this Superman suit that's super sleek.
Yeah,
and like the S is like sharper,
and it's not even. I mean, it's obviously it's a preliminary test suit, but like it's not even fully colored up at the top. You can see where it's kind of torn and frayed around the neckline kind of deal. It's a horrible picture. It really is. It's like the worst possible picture they could have taken.
Then Grant Morrison tells the story of Superman, the last son of Krypton.
Imagine a distant planet in a far-off star system. Light years from here. We've never seen it in our telescopes. We know nothing about them, but they look a bit like us. A star that's in the last days of its life, and imagine that the planet is under threat of destruction. And those fantastic scientists say that there's only one thing they can do, and that's to send a child out into space who might carry the physical attributes and mental attributes that these people have engendered over the centuries. And imagine then that this child coming to Earth suddenly is gifted with powers that come from the great society that gave birth to him. And he not only brings those powers, but he brings a morality. Just imagine what he could do to our world with the aim of changing it.
Oh, that beautiful Scottish brogue. Grant Morrison recounting the tale of Superman.
I love it. I could listen to him do that. He's also into like chaos magic and ritual magic and stuff like that. So he kind of looks at all these characters like sigils and stuff. And if they were weird at a certain point in the 50s, he would somehow find a way to make that relevant in the modern times when he's writing a comic book. He's also a very controversial writer. A lot of people have been split on him. And he's written so much stuff that there are Grant Morrison stories that I'm like, that one didn't quite work.
Yeah. Did you dig his Batman stuff?
Yes, I did like Batman.
See, I did not, but I loved his Superman stuff.
All-Star Superman.
Yeah.
If you've never read a Superman comic, his All-Star Superman that he did with the artist Frank Quitely, that's some of the best Superman comics out there.
I mean, he pulled all the weird Silver Age stuff from Superman back in the 50s, and he made it work. Modern times.
And the Frank Quitely art.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
Takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
There's a classic style intro into this. Had the old Superman letters coming in and out.
I appreciated that.
I didn't mind that much. I actually thought it was kind of fun. Apparently, he paid an actor to dress up like a silhouette, like Superman, like a silhouette of a guy playing Superman walking around a graveyard. And, all right.
It's a Kickstarter documentary, man. What do you want?
Look.
The budget was limited.
That's what Stuart said when I was hating Nintendo Quest so much. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. At first, it's just for the payers. But these movies stick around and other people are going to grab onto them. And you either do it good or you don't. But I'm saying I didn't hate it.
My favorite part of the opening credits, and actually it's a thing throughout the whole documentary because they use that actor repeatedly, is his face is always in shadow. Like you don't know it's not Nicolas Cage. we don't need you to hide his face.
Yeah.
We're assuming the fact that Nicolas Cage is not in the documentary or in the credits. This guy's probably not Nicolas Cage.
I thought it was. And I'm only just now finding out.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
Kevin Smith, he was tapped to write a Superman movie. And he starts basically writing a Christopher Reeve Superman movie, pretty much. And then he meets a guy named John Peters, who was involved in the first two Tim Burton Batman movies. But he was negotiating the rights to Superman because apparently the film rights had come up. And Warner Brothers, for a moment, did not have the rights. So he wanted to set up and make a Superman movie. And he said he wanted it kind of like based around, I guess John Peters approaches a lot of the movies that he saw as a kid, like King Kong and stuff. And he really wanted to pop his career with a Superman movie the same way he did with a Batman movie, which turned out to be a big success.
Right.
And Kevin Smith interviews a guy named Basil. I didn't catch his last name. There's a lot of talking heads in this movie. Yeah. We meet a lot of concept artists in this movie, which is actually their input into the background of this and what was going on behind the scenes. And the fact that we see loads of concept art, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Same here. That and the costume design, those were the two most interesting aspects.
And everyone had a lot to say about it, too. Everyone had like their own weird angle into what worked and what didn't. And looking at all these, I mean, I think in most any movie out there, whether it becomes a success or a failure, you can pretty much bet, especially if it's like a more of a sci-fi angle or a fantasy angle, that the concept art is going to often be better than what you end up seeing on the screen.
Hands down. Is it normal to have that many concept artists on a movie?
Gosh, I don't know. It seemed like there was a lot of things that weren't normal going into this movie.
I mean, I can understand, as the direction of the movie sort of changed over time, I can understand bringing on different concept artists, but there seem to be like a lot of concept artists all working at once each with their own sort of vision, but all sort of trying to give Tim Burton what he was asking for. So that just seemed odd to me. It's like, how do you get anything done with that many people?
Sometimes it just don't happen, no matter how much you want it to. There was a writer before Kevin Smith. He got a script, and he was asked to rework it. I didn't catch the original writer.
Gregory Poirier, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
But the movie was called Superman Reborns. And Kevin read the script, and he was supposed to do Punch-Up, and he was like, look, first of all, that title, no, change it to Superman Lives. This is one of the few things that Kevin brings to it, that it becomes what it is throughout the rest. And he talks about how there was a scene where Superman talks to like a psychiatrist, like a shrink, and he confesses that he's Superman, and the shrink doesn't believe him. Like some kind of like weird, like, what is Superman kind of thing going on. But Kevin encounters John Peters. And so Kevin punches up the script, meets with John, who's the big producer on here. And like you said, he's Barbra Streisand's former hairdresser turned producer. And John has some rules with what he wants this Superman movie to be. He said, no flying. Number 1, no flying. Number 2, no suit. He doesn't like that suit.
So basically, no Superman.
Yeah. And 3, most important of all, I think, to John, he wanted him to fight a giant spider.
I think that's my favorite out of all the bullet points.
Because he described the giant spiders, or the spider, one of the fiercest predators on the planet. John is obsessed with fighting and masculinity. So he seems to like sight a lot of animals. Like, this looks so cool. He's almost like if an 8-year-old had too much money and controlled things too much.
Read this to me.
Like if the kid who bullied you in the 7th grade had a lot of money and was allowed to just do whatever he wanted with your favorite things. that costume is gay.
The spider's not big enough.
John Peters denies saying no flying and no suit. I don't know. Now, Kevin Smith can be kind of, it ain't hard getting Kevin Smith for an interview. So he'll say a lot of things freely. But I cannot find whenever John Peters denies something.
He's a hard guy to believe.
Yeah, I don't believe.
Why would you? Oil just drips off of him, just from his pores.
And so Kevin takes these rules. I don't know how he's making it work. He has to be like, dude, he's got to wear his fucking suit. It's Superman. What do you mean he can't fly? I mean, there's the earliest iteration of Superman, he leapt.
Right.
And in those old cartoons, I think he
was Fleischer stuff. But
yeah, the Fleischer.
But no one, I mean, unless you're a hardcore comic book nerd, no one knows that.
That's true.
I mean, his whole catchphrase is...
But they came with that leaping thing. Conceptually, they held on to that leaping thing throughout the pre-production of this movie. And they were kind of describing how they wanted him to be like jumping like 3 miles at a time.
It seems like they kind of flip-flopped him. At one point, he wasn't gonna fly. Then he was gonna fly.
Yeah,
and he was back to leaping buildings again.
I think modern origin tellings of Superman, it kind of shows him jumping and then eventually learning how to fly. We meet a lot of concept artists. Tim Burgard, I think, is one of the first ones, and he illustrates because Kevin makes the giant spider and he calls it the Thanagarian snare beast. And at one point, Kevin will be kicked off of this project, but the concept of the Thanagarian snare beast will stick around.
That's his other major contribution to the project.
Thanagar references the planet that the Hawkman stuff comes from.
Right.
It's like it has alien origins. So Thanagar is like a planet in the DC universe, and you can tell that is like a fanboy nerd writer's contribution.
Oh, totally. He just wanted to slip that in.
I think it was a lot harder to find kind of stuff like that in those movies back in the day. Because as good as like the first Batman was, Batman Returns was shit. I watched that recently. It was like, what the fuck is going on in this
I don't know, man. Danny DeVito, his weird performance in that movie, I enjoy. Completely separate from the movie itself. And Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman. I mean,
the movie looks as good as the first one did, if not a little better. Story-wise, it's like a shit show.
Oh, totally.
That makes zero sense. Well, Tim Burgard illustrates the Thanagarian snare beast, and his drawing looks like a big vagina, which is letting out...
Thank you so much for saying that. Because it never came up in the documentary, and I was like, come on, man. And we all see this.
And it's Giger-inspired, so that's like... It's kind of a way of him saying it without saying it, that this looks like genitalia, because Giger he drew a lot of things that look like dicks and shit like that. But this story was going to be loosely translated from the Death of Superman story. And that comic came out when? 93?
Yeah.
And Superman sales were lagging quite a bit. And some writers at the time, they interviewed Dan Jurgens, who was a big writer at that time with other people. Louise Simonson was another one. Superman sales were down, so they came up with the Death of Superman story. And it became one of the biggest selling comic books of all time when Superman died. It made the news. It was everywhere.
It was everywhere. If you ever get a chance, not to bring another documentary into the discussion about this documentary, but there is about an hour and a half long documentary on the Superman Doomsday animated, the direct-to-DVD animated feature they did that talks about that whole process.
I think I've seen that.
It actually made me appreciate that storyline more and go back and read it and look at it differently because it interviews all those creators with their Superman Summit they do every year.
Was that when Louise Simonson was talking about the funeral for the friend story?
Yeah.
She gets choked up.
Yeah. I got a little choked up myself.
Watching that part. She really sold it. Like it wasn't the actual Death of Superman was pretty brainless.
It was the aftermath.
But the aftermath was where all the emotions kind of came in.
Yeah, but it was a huge thing.
It seems obvious that that the concept would be option for a movie. But apparently in Kevin's script, people like characters like Deadshot, who maybe you've seen Suicide Squad. That's Will Smith's character. Batman appears in the script. After Superman dies, Batman comes onto like a Times Square TV screen.
That's the best.
And consoles all of Metropolis.
People of Metropolis. You may have lost your hero.
When I was a teenager, I was a big fan of Kevin Smith. And he wrote some comics later in his career that at the time I really liked. But when you get insights into Kevin Smith and what he's contributing to this script, it sounds wild because maybe I do want to see this. This sounds fucking nuts. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of Kevin Smith's material is what works in 1996 does not hold up very strong in, Kevin Smith's work does not have a timeless tone to it.
No, not at all.
He seems very much to be a man of this time. When we're talking about 90s culture, a lot of what Kevin Smith was doing was alluding to a lot of what would become very popular later on in terms of all the things he likes. Because he's also, not only is he a director, but he's kind of made a career of talking about geek stuff. And now geek stuff is pretty big.
That's essentially what he does now. I think he does that more than anything else.
And he does make movies sometimes. I've seen Red State, and I couldn't tell you a second of a frame of that movie. I think I've completely forgotten.
I don't even think I've heard of that.
Yeah, he did a movie called Red State, and another that Angela's seen where a guy turns into a walrus. Man, I don't know. He's still doing things sometimes.
Is this all part of the View Askew universe?
I'll just assume, yeah. I know he made Clerks 2, which was...
it was a horseshit movie.
Yeah. And Chasing Amy, and it seems like even those earlier movies, it's like, we're getting we're getting Kevin Smith relationship advice in a lot of these movies. And there's a lot of attempts at being really profound and really insightful. And there's a lot of dumb, funny shit, which I think is what he does best, like goofy teenage humor. But when he tries to be poignant, it's like, oh, dude.
There's a lot of speechifying in Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't he dating Joey Lauren Adams at that time, or they had just broken up or something like that?
I have no idea. I can't remember. But that was the days when Ben Affleck would be in your movie.
It'd be okay.
Yeah, when they used to be friends. You can imagine that. I mean, Ben Affleck is now this mega star. But yeah, he and Kevin Smith and what's that dude that's the skateboarder guy, Scientologist, who was in all his movies too. He was in My Name is Earl.
Oh, Jason Lee.
Jason Lee, yeah. You didn't know he was a Scientologist?
Oh, yeah, I knew he was a Scientologist.
Yeah. Okay, good. I just want to check in. I always like to proclaim when someone's a Scientologist.
You should. The world needs to know who
That's a segment. That's our new segment, Scientology Watch.
We stand tall, no turning back.
On today's episode, Beck.
John Peters admits, I'm not a reader. Probably could have guessed it. And so Kevin reads him the script. Apparently John has people do this a lot. He lays down, and Kevin says he puts his fingers like a frame, like it'd be a movie frame, in front of his face. John Peters is just like a dipshit with too much money.
Honestly, I feel like he's still a hairdresser, just pretending to be a producer. And he's managed to bullshit his way and do a lot of successful movies. But, I mean, really, The frame, the finger frame, do people actually even do that? I mean, is that a thing that real directors or producers do? And why would a producer need to do that?
Despite my criticisms of Kevin Smith, I believe him when he tells these stories.
I don't doubt it.
So yeah, I think John really does do that, and he really is a jagoff.
With a fantastic head of hair.
Yeah, he does. Now, Kevin's reading the script, and John's like, it's too boring. And he suggests, and there's a scene where Brainiac, the villain Brainiac, appears, and John suggests to spice things up. At first, I guess Brainiac's at the Fortress of Solitude, Superman's Arctic base, where he goes to be alone. And John's like, why don't you have, like, guards fighting Brainiac? Like, Superman has guards. And Kevin's like, why would Superman need guards? Well, Superman has robot guards, right? I mean, I don't know. And so John suggests, like, well, look, how about he fights some polar bears? There's nothing more fierce. There's nothing more fierce than polar bears.
Where does his animal knowledge come from?
He loves animals. I bet it takes him a long time to walk through a zoo, you know. And he always tells everyone.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that polar bears are very fierce animals, but they're also on a can of Coke during the holiday.
Yeah, right.
I can't see them as the most.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, yeah, those adorable polar
I know
bears.
they'll rip into a seal or a walrus without, batting an eye, but there's got to be something else that's more ferocious.
The director talks about how he read one script where the bears were like statues or something. Like, there'd been so many iterations of this script. And then Kevin suggests they haven't decided on a director yet. And Kevin goes, why don't you get Tim Burton? He brought Batman into the fold. Why not get him to kind of do the same thing for Superman? It was a good idea on Kevin's part, but there was a little naivety into the Hollywood game because that pretty much would negate Kevin's presence because there's no Kevin Smith and Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
There's a Tim Burton movie.
Right.
In the people that he likes. I mean, John says that Kevin's script was real amateur, and I'm sure in some ways it probably.
I mean, he was still early in his career,
but it was. But I could imagine that Kevin's script. I mean, arguing on Kevin's behalf a little bit would have a lot more. Would probably have resonated a lot more to a core fan base, and also probably was pretty creative and imaginative. And I'm sure he did put a lot of like heart and mind into that script. He seems excited about everything, so why wouldn't he be excited?
Yeah, I mean,
about
he
it?
says like he just ran with it. I mean, he was like, he wasn't even there. He was at a meeting and he wasn't even there for that. He was there for something else. And they mentioned Superman and he was like, let me write that.
Yeah.
Because why not? Why wouldn't you write Superman if you have the opportunity? So I'm sure he was very enthusiastic about it.
So then Schnepp meets Tim Burton, and that's where the Schnepp interviews are side by side with Tim Burton. Like the shot is pulled back on both of them. Tim Burton's wearing his shades.
He seems still really bitter about the whole experience, which, I mean, I can understand. I feel like that may have been his one property, his movie that he really wanted to do and was really excited about, and just didn't pan out.
I think once the process of Superman Lives got going, he was getting legitimately excited about it.
Yeah, because originally, didn't he say that directing a superhero movie was like Chinese water torture?
Yeah, he didn't have he saw the Batman experience as just him teaching him how to deal with the industry and how to make it work. With the first Batman movie and the second, visually at least, that he was able to strike that balance, like with his own style and something that did work for, comic book fans and shit. And we meet a guy named Michael Anthony Jackson. We'll call him Michael Jackson.
Of course, we have to.
He's a concept artist, and he is signed on to work for an upcoming movie called The Matrix.
But a little small indie movie.
Yeah, a little movie that maybe you've heard of. But he bails to do Superman Lives. And there's all kinds. There's Sylvain. There's Billy Bowes. Jacques Ray. They talk to tons of concept artists.
Jim Carson, Jack Johnson, Harold Belker. It's a lot of people.
Steven Johnson, Colleen Atwood. They work on the costuming part of it. That's my favorite part of this movie, is getting to see all this concept art and seeing it from that perspective. It shows you like, wow, this really would have been a very different Superman movie. You're not sure if it would end up being a good movie or a bad movie, but it would have been memorable if they actually made this movie.
I think we can all agree on that.
That means I kind of wish they made it.
I mean, as the movie progressed, I found myself wanting to see that movie more and more, but wanting to see specific pieces from different versions of the movie as time passed.
Yeah.
Because it turned out, for the most part, every single instance would have been a shit show. But if you took, I think, certain elements from each different phase over the 2.5, 3 years that was in pre-production, it could have been a really cool movie.
We did end up getting the death and resurrection of Superman in film over the course of 2 movies.
We sure did.
In 2 movies that can only be described as movies.
They were committed to film, and you can watch them.
Yeah, they're viewable to anyone who can see. Movie. Colleen Atwood, who does the costuming for this movie. This is the first movie of this type that she was really getting into. Earlier credits involve Edward Scissorhands, Little Women, Ed Wood, which is my favorite Tim Burton movie.
Cabin Boy, of all things.
Would you like to buy a monkey?
No, I don't want to buy a monkey.
Are you sure?
And Philadelphia. I mean, you really couldn't get a more weird combination of movies.
She comes up with some interesting concepts, her with some other designers, come up with some things that you never would have seen in a movie up until that point. They were working on this resurrection suit. It was going to have lasers in it. It was the suit that was going to bring Superman back from the brink.
Which is pretty faithful to the comic. I mean, memory serves. I mean, at some point he gets into some chamber or something that he gets put into a chamber that has some sort of. I feel like he wears it's been a long time since I've read that story, but I feel like he wears some sort of suit. I think it might be that black suit.
Yeah,
that sort of like helps him absorb more yellow sun radiation to get back to full power or something like
comic booky stuff.
Yeah. Science.
Tim Burton, of course, he dumps Kevin's script. Wesley Strick, who's worked with Tim Burton a lot, he comes on as the screenwriter, and they decide to keep the Thanagarian snare beast. That's important. John Peters, big supporter of the Thanagarian snare beast. Did John Peters take credit for that?
It sounded like he was trying to, because he just kept referring to Thanagarian. What is that again? Thanagarian?
He remembered.
Yeah, he remembered that. You know he has no idea what the fuck a Thanagarian is.
Yeah, Hawkman world.
So that's how you know it wasn't his idea. Like, he may have been the spider guy, but the name came from
But the name Thanagarian snare beast has been etched into his brain ever since, and he still cites it.
Yeah, and he never lets it go, even after the movie.
So John is involved, and he's worked with Tim before, but Wesley Strick, he's friends with Tim Burton. He says things that Tim would never maybe say directly, like that working with John Peters was a giant pain in the ass. And I usually spent that time trying to avoid John Peters as much as possible. And there was no way I was going to do more Batman movies if John Peters was going to be involved, because he's a complete pain in the ass. But John Peters, I think more in his head that he and Tim were a big duo of movie making dynamo back in those days. But John starts talking about how it was his idea to cast Michael Keaton, and everyone jeered it and hated it, and all the fanboys bitched about it. But then when Michael Keaton showed up, that it worked out and people really liked it. And it was also his idea to bring on Tim Burton. He said it was his idea for that. And Michael Keaton did, I would say, as far as, for me, the best on-screen Bruce Wayne is Michael Keaton.
I agree with that assessment.
But at this point, while John is bragging about what smart decisions he's made in the past,
I knew, being a street fighter my whole life, that you can gauge the toughness of your opponent by the look in their eyes.
This guy wants you to respect his masculinity so hard. Look, man, don't underestimate him. John wanted Nick Cage because John saw Nick Cage as a guy from the streets, man.
Yeah, that look on his face, that toughness.
Yeah.
He might not have been the most attractive guy, which he was very quick to point out about both him and Michael Keaton. I'm sure they appreciated that.
Oh, yeah.
They're not that good looking, but they're immensely talented.
But they're masculine. They're manly.
Exactly.
They're man's men. They're from the streets, man. They also wanted to cast for Lois Lane. They had a list. Sandra Bullock, I think, was the big one. I saw Mira Sorvino. They show a list that.
Oh, dude, that list. Did you look at the list?
I saw Mira Sorvino. Who else was on that list?
Well, I was thinking of the Jimmy Olsen list.
Oh, Chris Rock. Yes.
But did you see the other names that were on the list? There were 2 different categories. There was just the non-labeled category, right. And then beneath that said, if black.
If black.
Then they had Savion Glover, the tap dancing guy.
Okay.
And then, of course, Chris Rock, which I think was the front runner.
Yeah.
And Marlon Wayans was the other guy, which I think would have made more sense than Chris Rock.
You think so?
I guess it depends on I gotta remember how young Chris Rock was at that time. I keep picturing Chris Rock now.
Maybe if they want to go a shticky route, Marlon could play maybe a little harder that way.
Yeah, which that's what Jimmy Olsen pretty much was up to that point. But they had Paul Rudd on the list, Matthew Perry, Balthazar Getty, Tom Everett Scott. I mean, it was a pretty extensive list of Jimmy Olsen candidates.
But I think they decided on Chris Rock.
According to Chris Rock, yes.
Yeah, who was bragging on the set of Dogma, which was a movie directed by Kevin Smith.
It is my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Because it doubles down on what was goofy and dumb about Kevin Smith movies.
I couldn't with that movie.
Oh, dude, it's the best one. Because it is unapologetically what it is. It's not like the other movies where he's trying to be smart and pontificate sensitively about something. Oh, I'm not trying to make a statement. Jay and Silent Bob at least was dumb for the sake of dumb. And I think he does that better than, I don't know, trying to teach us something.
Did that come before Clerks 2 or after?
Oh, Clerks 2 was way after. Clerks 2 was a sign that I was like, maybe it's time to move on.
Yeah. Jersey Girl.
I never saw it.
Don't.
Okay. Other casting choices was Christopher Walken as Brainiac, which would have been cool.
That would have been awesome.
And they had Kevin Spacey, known for being a professional creep. He was the long pick as Luther, and that was one of the few casting choices that survived into the Bryan Singer, who also is not without his own accusations.
Yes, this is very true.
Into the Bryan Singer version of Superman and Superman Returns. All the Nick Cage footage we see in this movie is him trying on the suit.
It'll feel a little looser the more I wear it.
Yeah, it's really tight.
This is great. Look at that.
But you can find online. You can find all this shit. Tim and Nick getting pumped up about it, and all you can see so much of Nicolas Cage in the Superman suit. Focus on the ones where he looks high as fuck. Those are my favorite ones. But he tries on this version of the suit that's like this weird, almost like a one-piece swimsuit kind of thing, and they're hating it. They're hating it. But then they do this process called vacuum forming that forms like a clear bubble over the layers of the suit. It kind of helps emphasize muscle, but also allows for another level where you can insert like your laser and your lights and stuff to show that regenerative process that they wanted the suit to show. And we see some Tim Burton concept art, which he's a good cartoonist.
Yeah, he does concept art for all of his movies, and a lot of it's pretty cool.
And he was really focusing hard on this Spider Brainiac concept. I think they called it the Edward Supermans when like his doodles. Nick, when he's in the suit, he goes into the next version of the suit, and it's more like a chrome latex version. And we see a final version where they show him with the full S and the cape, while they're walking around a hotel room, talking about how it fits, how it bends. And he's got the long hair. I don't think Nick had long hair at the time they put that on him. He's talking about how he likes the long hair. And then they're questioning everything. He's like, well, what about the cape? Maybe we could ditch the cape. Maybe we could keep long hair. Long hair Superman was a thing in the comics right after he came back. He had long hair, which half the time just looked like a mullet.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
It was pretty, none of the fans liked it.
Nick Cage complains about what every Hollywood executive who's tried to make a Superman movie has ever complained about, and producers, is that Superman wears his underpants on the outside. Why? Why does he do that? He looks ridiculous. Now, we have more of a context into Superman.
Yes.
It's not just about his powers to us or what he looks like. It's about who Superman is and what makes him historically a big deal hero. I think for me, I like the underpants on the outside because I like a Superman that always has some level of an aw shucks quality. And I think the little underpants on the outside kind of helps bring that about.
Absolutely. I mean, people forget that Superman was created during the era of the strong guy. Sort of thing. I mean, that's where that costume comes from, is the underwear. That's those guys who were lifting the huge barbells.
Yeah.
And that's where that whole thing comes from. And you're right. It does. People are always trying to tinker. Superman's one of the most difficult characters to bring to real world sensibilities to, because when you start to do that, the more you do it, the more you start to lose the essence of what makes the character what he is, what everyone loves about him. And that's a whole other discussion about where we're at right now with that character cinematically. Yeah. But people will always want to run away from that. But then at the same token, you had someone like Bryan Singer who ran toward that. And I mean, that wasn't the greatest movie. It wasn't as horrible as I remember it being going back and watching it.
No, I mean, there's a few plots in that movie that I was like, you didn't need that. You can take all that out.
Yeah.
For me, there was a lot to like in that movie. I liked I forget the actor's name, but I liked the guy who played Superman.
Brandon Routh.
Yeah.
Currently, I think he's still playing the Atom on all the CW.
He's on CW
Yeah.
DC shows,
Yeah.
which most of those shows are better than the movies.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
make.
Which is so sad.
Nick says he sees this movie like they're making a fairy tale. And so they take the stone Nick Cage pictures of him in the costume. Certain pictures are better than others, but I think all in all, he doesn't look that bad in the suit.
I mean, the more when you see it more in the context, I mean, that one that sort of talk about, the one that everyone knows about, it's just a bad picture. But when they really, and it was also still fairly early in the creation of the suit, and you watch as you learn more about the costume design and that whole process, it actually turns out to be not a bad looking suit at all. And plus, the people not understanding the context of, one suit is specifically supposed to be the regeneration suit. I think a lot of people thought that was going to be the actual Superman costume he'd be wearing throughout the movie, which that's always the danger of when stuff leaks out pre-productions. People don't have any context to it.
What was the max budget of this movie at one point?
They were talking 200.
Yeah, I think I heard 300 million at some point. And I think a lot of this started at about 30 million.
Yeah, I mean, this is what, 1998? 96. I mean, that's a lot of money now.
I think this all started in 96.
Right.
And I think it did take some time for it all to crash and burn.
The funny part is a lot of that original concept art for Brainiac ended up coming to fruition in other versions of that character.
Oh, yeah.
Like that Spider Brainiac, they actually used that in the Batman animated series.
It looked cool as shit.
It looked really cool.
And they brought in a lot of European artists, European comic artists, who have different sensibilities than American art. And it seemed like they hired those guys specifically for that reason. Their concepts of Krypton, some hard sci-fi
oh my God,
shit.
Yeah.
The ideas and the imagination that were behind all of that. I kind of like this idea. In the comics, Krypton, they do like very small things to make it look alien, but it all still seems somewhat familiar. That contrast of Earth and what was designed in those Krypton designs would have just been so huge.
Those I can't remember which concept artist it was. I remember specifically that he liked to draw using color on black paper, and that sort of shifting tectonic plates version of Krypton, where there are all these little pods that are underneath, like under the crevices, and like, I mean, the Kryptonian, that concept art was what blew me away the most out of all the concept art that I saw.
Yeah.
When they brought on the second scriptwriter, I feel like at that point they decided they were going to not have him discover that he was even from another planet until like during the movie as an adult.
Like maybe he thought he had a condition or something. Usually it's like by the time he's a kid, he somehow figures it out. But this, a grown Superman who has no idea. It kind of would explain why he would be the way he would be. It seems like if you know you're from another planet too early an age, would you become like some
I feel like you would be more inclined to become, exactly.
Yeah. But John, he's being interviewed by Schnapp, but the interview is interrupted. His phone rings.
This is maybe my favorite part of the documentary.
When Krypton blew up, hold on a second, just a second. Pause for a second. Hello, I'm in the middle of this interview. What do you need? Yeah, do it. Okay. Hello? Let me just take this one thing real quick. All right. Everybody has heard about the guy. My guys know all about him. I would love to have lunch with him, or if you could set that up. Yeah. How much money did you guys raise for him so I could put some in there if I wanted to? Okay. All right, I love you. Set this up for me. I really appreciate it. Okay, thanks. Bye. Sorry about that.
I love you. Set this up for me. John Peters talks about with all the designs and stuff going on, he didn't like all the weirdness and he wanted a ship. This guy, he doesn't care about how hard anyone works. And he's not like a guy who's really providing that much guidance. He just sees something and goes, no. And on a whim, he could just be like, I want the ship to be like a skull ship.
I saw it on the cover of a National Geographic. I thought it looked really awesome.
Yeah, skulls are cool.
Skull ship. Kids love skulls.
Skulls are masculine. Skulls are the fiercest predators in the animal kingdom. And the skull ship was supposed to have a monster zoo, like a menagerie.
I'm actually impressed somehow in his weird, stunted adolescent brain without, as far as I know, ever reading much as far as Superman comics is concerned. He actually did grab something from the comic randomly out of the universe.
Yeah.
Which is the Skull Ship and the menagerie of creatures.
It works. John Peters owns to this day in his home the Skull Ship scale model that he
It's a
wanted.
pretty awesome model, too.
And John Schnepp points that out while walking around. There was no concept art that I thought was really that bad. Everything looked really cool to me. The director, John Schnepp, was very smart to let that concept art be such a strong feature of this movie, because that really lets you know like what direction this stuff was trying to go. And you can decide from there if it was like, wow, that's fucking weird, or wow, that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
And you can see why anyone would go one way or the other with it.
I personally, I really liked Jack Johnson, that guy, which his concept art really wasn't, it had anything to do with the costumes or any of the ships or the aliens. His was more of just the basics of this is how Metropolis is going to sort of look. And it was these very sort of old style, elegant paintings of people attending fundraisers. And I thought that looked really, really cool. And then the guy who created a lot of the concept designs for the Kryptonian stuff, particularly the costumes, Liam Sharp, he did some really awesome designs of that actually I feel like made it into the Man of Steel eventually.
Yeah.
That's sort of like real metallic alien Geiger-esque sort of Egyptian hieroglyphic engraved and everything. I thought his stuff was really cool too. But again, a lot of these concepts ended up being used in some shape or form, whether people realize it on a conscious level or not in other versions of the character.
John Peters would come by the studio to see what the artists were working on. None of the artists liked them.
They loved those visits. Those were the best.
They nicknamed John Peters Loudmouth. And he would come in with like kids, his own kids. They would talk about how he'd come in. He wouldn't even acknowledge the human presence of people drawing these images. They would just come in with kids and point at pictures and be like, I like this. I don't like this. I like this. I don't like this. And John would scrap entire blocks of works. And they said that Peters would demonstrate jujitsu techniques in front of women at the offices. At one point, he put an art director in a headlock. And John Peters does not exactly deny this.
He really is a 10-year-old bully. I mean, he could be president if you really think about it.
I'm surprised he's not in the cabinet, Trump's cabinet.
It's only, I mean,
I'm throwing it out there.
It could happen.
Peter says that he was creating an energy of a hero, something that these guys know nothing about. I'm telling you, this guy, masculinity just eats at this guy's brain like a cancer.
That just burned my ass when he said that.
Yeah.
I mean, what part of bullying someone and putting them in a headlock, how does that equate to the concept of being a hero?
Yeah. This guy's very confused. He doesn't know he's the bully. He thinks he's the Superman. He doesn't understand that Superman would never just do that to somebody.
Classic Lex Luthor.
The villain never knows they're the villain.
No, they always think that what they're doing is for the greater good.
And that's when he says he's been in 500 fights.
I've been in 500 fights.
I guess he's counted them. 500 fights.
I've been in 500 fights.
If that's the case, you got to figure he just decided, I'm going to stop at 500. Because I can imagine that. I mean,
that's a good round number. And that's enough to brag about.
I've been in 500 fights.
No more fights for me. Not as impressive as 503, but better than 497.
Well, Warner Brothers executives, they start getting nervous because the film Batman and Robin has come out. That is classically an off-and-pan movie. So Batman and Robin embarrasses the studio. It does not make the money that they expected to make.
Freeze the heroes.
So Warner pulls back on the budget of this quite a bit because they are losing money. Some of the movies that they had come out with at this time, Warner Brothers put out Steel, which is about another DC Comics character starring Shaquille O'Neal. Who would have thought that would not make the money they thought?
That just seemed like instant gold to me.
Far Down Below, they didn't realize that the Steven Seagal bubble had burst.
Also, that title could sound like a way to describe some sort of venereal disease.
They made The Postman, that's that Kevin Smith movie. It did not make a lot of money back.
Kevin Smith did that movie?
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Kevin Costner. Kevin Smith should remake it.
And that was a movie that they put a significant amount of money into, and it didn't come close to breaking even. I mean, I think that may have been the straw that broke.
That was kind of a thing with Costner movies at the time, is that I think he had a lot of input on the concepts of these movies. He really seemed to want to do these epic films, and they just
Waterworld,
and they just were not working out. And there was like a Tarzan movie out at the time. I didn't even remember that shit.
I don't either.
They put out a Tarzan movie, and that must have flopped hard. I have no recollection.
And I don't know what 187. I know it had Samuel L. Jackson in it, and I feel like it was a horror or maybe a suspense movie.
I can't remember.
Exactly. Like, that was, I mean.
And they put out Major League Back to the Minors, which sounds like a straight-to-DVD release, but apparently they tried to put that out in the theater, and it did as what you would expect. And all of these movies lost a lot of money.
So much money.
Tim Burton, the studio gets him to fire his writer, and they bring on Dan Gilroy. He's the third or fourth screenwriter on this movie. And he meets with Tim, and Dan connects with the angst of what Tim's trying to bring to it. John Peters says that this movie was supposed to be like a love story that also showed a dark side of Superman, because there's a dark side to many men.
I've been in 500 fights.
I have a feeling that John Peters has done some awful shit in his life.
I'm feeling a Me Too moment coming about him pretty soon.
Yeah. I think there's some shit in his closet.
I'm surprised that something hasn't come out already at this point.
It seems like he's reacting to something. You know, I did not Google John Peters' name. Let me just do that real quick. Let's see what's John Peters. Let's see. Okay. I just looked up John Peters.
I looked at that as well.
There's a January 12, 2017 article. So he hasn't been discussed that much. He says that I am the Trump of Hollywood. That's the title of the article.
Really?
From Hollywood Reporter. There's a lot of old shit, actually.
He was an executive producer on Man of Steel.
Yeah, I figured.
He was banned from the Man of Steel set by Christopher Nolan. It's pretty interesting.
Industrial Light and Magic comes out to work on some flying effects. They look pretty good.
I was pretty impressed with those.
But there's a part where, and maybe this is a John Peters thing, where Superman fights ninjas, and Michael Jackson, the guy who was going to be the Matrix artist, passed it up. He can't remember why Superman was fighting ninjas, but Superman was.
Did you notice the concept art? Did you look at the concept art? It was a lot of Superman looking like, why am I having to do this? Like a lot of like spinning around and ninjas just flying off of him, or then swords cracking over the top of his head. What's the point of this scene?
Kevin Smith is scouting a building in Pittsburgh, but finds out that a movie already has a bid on it. The Superman Lives movie. So Kevin crosses paths with it again.
He's like, are you fucking kidding me, man?
And there's a reenactment. Now, in the very beginning, we see a silhouette actor Superman walking around a graveyard. And this is the first time we see that actor, and he's just pretending to die. They're redoing the death of Superman. I don't know how necessary that was. It seemed a little inconsistent.
There was no emotional impact. Like, I don't even understand what the point of the scene was. They couldn't have been accomplished with just showing pictures from the comic. Unnecessary. And just real quick, I have to give this documentary props for introducing the thing with two heads to general public knowledge, because if you've never seen that movie,
it's like an old sci-fi movie.
It's an old sci-fi / blaxploitation movie with Rosie Greer, a former NFL football player who became an actor, and I used that word actor in the loosest sense of the word, who, if memory serves, it's this racist white guy gets killed, and to save his life, they attach his body to the black body of Rosie Greer, still having Rosie Greer's head. So the whole movie is a series of really poorly shot, just stick the guy's head through a hole in a coat, just saying racist shit to Rosie Greer.
How many Clint Howards would you give that movie?
Oh, how many can I? What's the max?
Well, the Herzog system requires 2 people rating it. I haven't seen it, so you can only give your 1 through 5 Clint Howards.
I got to go. Oh man, I gotta go 5.
Wow, 5 Clint Howard movies.
You have to see this movie.
Wow, okay.
It's
now I'll watch it and I'll give it my Clint Howards, and that will be inscribed the rating for it. But we see some reenactment, and the writer talks about how Superman is angsty. He kind of wants to die. The exact same time where he's reworking the script, Princess Diana dies.
God bless Texas.
And John Peters says, you got to come over. And they're watching news footage post Diana dying.
Can you imagine how awkward that felt sitting in his huge house watching footage of the death of Princess Diana?
And Peters is like, you got to write down everything they're saying. Everything they're saying. So the suit is done. They do camera tests with Cage. A lot of it looks pretty good.
I thought so.
And then the movie studio execs, they're not brave people. They're not the creative forces. There was something that one of the artists in this movie, one of the concept artists pointed out. The truth is that highly creative people have a very hard time getting their vision done in a Hollywood system. I think he said he threatened to throw an executive out the window upon the cancellation of this movie.
That sounds about right.
That might be one of the most believable things John Peters says, that he threatened to throw someone out.
He put him in a headlock.
He put so much of his heart into it. And Tim Burton acknowledges that it was very painful to work so long on something and it to not happen. But Warner Brothers, they got another movie that's coming down the pike that they want to push hard. And that's Wild Wild West. Wild Wild West. Starring Will Smith.
When I roll into the Wild Wild West.
Who was the guy at the time.
When I stroll into the Wild Wild West.
This was when Will Smith would put out a movie and it would be easily number one every.
He was like they call him Mr. 4th of July. It was like every 4th of July weekend. There was a Will Smith movie coming out for a few years.
And in that movie, now I barely remember that movie.
Oh, I need to see it again. I was one of those people who actually was excited about it and went to go see it in the theater. It had 3 elements that were enough for me to go see it. One was Will Smith, who again was the big guy,
the biggest guy at the time.
And we're only really allowed to have one major black actor at a time in this country,
right.
So he was the guy. Number 2, Salma Hayek was in it.
Oh right.
So I was very much I'm still a big Salma Hayek fan, but hormonally I was probably the biggest fan at that point.
I know you're also a very intense Kevin Kline fan, one of the most intense Kevin Kline fans on the planet.
I am. I have a Kevin Smith body pillow that I had custom made.
You say Kevin Smith?
I mean,
Kevin Kline.
Oh
body
God, he
pillow.
just wears his friggin'
Kevin Smith
everywhere.
By the time Kevin mentions Tim Burton, he just shows up very sparingly in this movie. But on their last interview, and this is an anecdote about the making of this documentary, they wrapped up the interview with him, and then everyone went home. And they came back to the offices the next day, where they had people come and guests to shoot. And when they were opening it up, they heard a voice. They're like, what's going on? And they go into the room where they were shooting with Kevin the previous day. He'd never left that room. And he had been talking nonstop about his time writing Superman Lives that whole time. He didn't even know the camera was off. It was like he didn't even acknowledge that no one was in the room anymore. And they showed up the next day, and he was still talking about the times.
Is this an actual thing?
Yeah.
Was this after the credits? Because I didn't watch after the credits of...
There was a Tim Burton thing at the very end.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Kevin Smith, they were like, dude, the camera has not been on for hours. Kevin, it's over. They had to snap him out of it. He just was...
For the record... The number 3 reason why I went to go see Wild Wild West, Cisco. That song, man. The Wild Wild West.
It was a very
when I rolled into I was just jamming out to that song in my car like 3 weeks.
That was a big hit.
It's on my phone right now. I can play it for you right now.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm obsessed with it, but it's a fun song.
Guess what's in that movie? A big mechanical spider.
He got his spider.
Including Kenneth Branagh with mech spider legs.
Very steampunk.
There's interviews with Cage. He does lament not getting to make Superman. Says that's one of the most precious icons. We don't have to make the movie, but somehow the story of that movie is still interesting to people. And that's true. Hence why we have this documentary. John Peters points out, honestly, that would it have done the numbers? Maybe not. I don't know if this movie would have been good or not, but I think people would have showed up to this movie.
It depends on, I think, what phase where you're at in the actual production. Like by the time it got to phase 3 with the 4th writer, there were some things about it that I liked, but at the same time, they were also cutting back on the budget. So if they had gone forward with making this movie, it would have been with a limited budget, and there's no way it would have. The vision, whatever Tim Burton and the other artists had, like there's no way they would have been able to do any of that and make it look good. But if they committed to it, the biggest thing I liked about the scripts their version of Superman was the idea of basically Clark Kent being kind of a schlub. have you ever seen a reporter, like an investigative reporter? Granted, I've only seen them in movies and TV shows, but they're generally portrayed as schlubs, chain smoking, trench coat wearing. So it makes sense to me that he would be, especially if they're going to go with this whole, he doesn't know where he's really from his entire life and being obsessed with finding out what's wrong with him, what he perceives as what's wrong with him. That would make you into a fairly, I would think, a kind of an antisocial, maybe laser focused and good at being an investigative journalist, but you wouldn't be wearing a 3-piece suit and a fedora and being, bumbling, stumbling over things all the time.
Yeah. But all that was like a put on. Christopher Reeve embodied that when he was Clark. And did a really good job. I mean, we just lost Margot Kidder not too long ago.
I know, yeah.
And if you go back of those first 2 Superman movies, just their interactions as Clark and Lois, there's genuine chemistry and charm in those scenes that
Absolutely.
You just are not getting from Superman movies these days. And it's just they have not, for some reason, been able to successfully recreate that as well. Even in the Superman Returns, which has some good things, it doesn't really hit that very well there.
The biggest thing for me is it commits the cardinal sin of being boring.
Yeah.
It's not a very exciting movie. I mean, there's not much happening action-wise. And we're finally at a point, like special effects-wise, with technology have progressed where they could have done some really cool stuff with Superman physically being Superman versus hitting a rock. I just feel like they dropped the ball. Lex Luthor, Kevin Spacey could have been great. There were elements of Kevin Spacey in there that I wanted to see him break out in Lex Luthor, but it kept slipping back into the Gene Hackman sort of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, which is done on purpose, it seems like.
Well, Bryan Singer was a self-admitted Richard Donner fan and was a huge fan of those movies, and this was basically an homage to those movies, essentially.
They hit the personalities right, but yeah, they should have had more. And take the fucking kid out of it. No one fucking cares about the kid.
I will still watch that movie over Man of Steel, though.
Yep, me too.
Hands down.
Yeah, I do think it's better than that. So the director says to Tim Burton, any final thoughts?
Why are you trying to depress me so much? Does anybody got any cyanide or anything I can take?
And that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Yeah. And he says, ask me when I'm 90 years old.
Yeah.
We're still going to get it made.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously still, I was really surprised that he even sat down and talked about this movie because he's not really known for being forthcoming about his experiences and his feelings about things. He's always been sort of that kind of guy who, not necessarily an elusive mystery. I mean, he does do some interviews.
Right.
But especially on this level, this low budget, fan funded documentary about something that was obviously still a very painful sort of subject for him to talk about. I was really surprised that he sat down for that long to talk about it in that much depth.
But that was the movie, The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? By John Schnepp. Akil, we don't rate in the star rating scale.
You don't say, Robert.
I'll throw that out the window. The star rating scale is like a leaping Superman. But the Herzog rating scale is like a John Peters full flight Superman got nerds into a headlock.
Throwing people out windows. Fight number 501.
I've been in 500 fights.
He's starting back up again. You can't keep a good hairdresser down.
We rate in the Herzog rating scale. You're going to give this 1 through 5 Herzogs. I'm going to give this 1 through 5 Herzogs. Morph together like Lex Luthor and Brainiac into one best out of 10 Herzog.
Good
film.
Metaphor.
Akil, what did you think of this movie? The Death of Superman Lives. Palms up in the air, hands out. What happened? By John Schnepp.
Well, this was the second time I viewed it. Like you, I saw it pretty much around when it first came out. And I've actually owned it since then. And this episode gave me a chance to sort of revisit it again. It's not the most exciting of documentaries. It does drag on at certain points. I'm not a big fan of the documentarian appearing throughout the documentary. That's kind of one of those things that annoys me a little bit. Very much enjoyed the fact, like you mentioned, that there's a lot of behind the scenes talk with the concept. The concept art, hands down, was that and the costume stuff. Like, that was the biggest thing for me. But that being said, I feel like this documentary would only be interesting to people who are very specifically interested in Superman and the whole this whole movie, the whole concept of this movie not being made. I feel like if anybody else watched it, even if someone, because I love documentaries. Obviously, you do too. I can watch documentaries about things.
That's what they say anyway.
It's not just a passing fad. I can watch documentaries that are about things that I might not necessarily know anything about or have any interest in. A lot of times that's the point of me watching the documentary, is because I'm like, I don't really know much about that. I think I'm going to check that out. And if it's a really well done documentary, regardless of the subject matter, it's going to interest me. And I felt like this one missed that mark. I can't think of any other friends beyond you and maybe one other person I could think of where I could sit them down in front of this documentary and they would actually sit through it and enjoy it. Mm. So because of that, because of the specificity of its audience, I'm going to give it 3.
Okay, yeah. I see a lot of what you're saying there. I think there is an aspect that it could pull in people who are just into like weird Hollywood stories, the way movies are made or fail to get made. I think there is an angle of that, like the John Peters interviews. That can be appreciated almost. You don't have to be a comics fan to watch the ego of this guy at work and the things he says that are ridiculous. Like, you don't have to be a Superman fan to kind of laugh at the crazy shit that comes out of his mouth. But the movie does have such concentration into the concepts behind this character and trying to make a movie about this character that if you are pulled in by that kind of stuff, I can imagine parsing through a lot of like concept art and going through what Krypton would be or what Brainiac would be might be a little boring for a lot of those people that might just be in it for a true Hollywood story. So it almost seems pretty half and half. And you can tell that John Schnepp is a fanboy. And I love like comic stuff. I go see all of these Marvel movies. But sometimes I feel like I'm starting to get into a bit of a burnout with a lot of nerd culture lately. Like I'm getting a little tired of things constantly referencing other things. And so I won't say it's the most egregious I've heard of it, but sometimes that fanboy angle, a lot of fanboys out there might think that they can do their favorite thing better than anyone else. But in reality is, no, you really can't.
No.
And there is a reason why things are this and things are that, why it is so hard to get these things done. I think there's a fair amount of documentary chocolate cake in this movie. I loved a lot of the concept art. The John Peters stuff was funny to me. He was the funniest element in this movie. This dude's ego, the guy's dripping bullshit, everything he says, and you don't take him very seriously, or you laugh at him more than you kind of look up to the guy. But he is like this guy who managed to be a giant in the system, and I think he almost represents most of what's wrong with the Hollywood system. And I think it's interesting when you're watching the movie to think of it like that. But John Schnepp, he's done things I like. I think he's more talented at telling this kind of thing than a lot of other fanboy directors would be.
Absolutely.
Like if this was Kevin Smith's movie, I don't think he would have made it as good as John Schnepp did it.
No.
But still, there were some things that seemed a little pointless. I think sometimes that setup narrative that fanboy filmmakers want to do when making documentaries, it's just unnecessary. And Schnepp didn't do it the worst, but still it seemed a little unnecessary. And you did get a lot of like a wowzers look, I'm sitting with Tim Burton. This movie pulled me in multiple directions because this is an interesting story. And I did like enjoy knowing as much about it as you could. And John Schnepp really made sure you got a lot of information regarding this movie. But yeah, you're right. You may have to just be a big nerd to really get a lot out of it. I don't think everything is nerd-centric. I don't really think you need to be a big nerd to appreciate it, but it does help quite a bit because otherwise, unless you just like looking at cool art, a lot of this stuff might bore you if you're not. I think this is right down the middle. I don't think it's going to please everybody. And I think a 3 out of 5 rating is just right. And that brings this movie to, you give it 3, I give it 3. That's 6 out of 10 Herzogs.
That's respectable.
6 out of 10 Herzogs, yeah.
Especially for a Kickstarter-funded documentary.
Partially funded, anyway. That's our review of The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, by John Schnepp. 6 out of 10 Herzogs. All right.
What happened?
Don't be like John Peters. There's enough.
Don't be a Peter.
Don't be a Peter. We got enough of those in the world. Be a you.
I like that. Unless you is
John Peters. What if John Peters is listening? I'm sure he is.
Be a U unless you is really strongly considering shooting up a school right now.
Yeah.
Then don't be a U.
Yeah. Or Roseanne. All right, y'all. Keep on talking. I have to take a shit.
Speaking of shit shows.
Yeah, there's a shit show in here. So feel free to speak subliminal messages.
As Bobby takes his shit, I will continue to shop on Amazon. Actually, I've got Wikipedia pulled up right now because I was watching an episode of Star Trek Discovery this morning that mentioned the USS Defiant from Star Trek DS9. There's a Mirror Universe episode. Mirror Universe episodes are always the best Star Trek episodes. It's a two-parter, I think. I've only watched the first one. I'll probably watch the second one tomorrow. If you haven't watched Star Trek Voyager, I'm saying that like anyone is going to hear this, but not Voyager, Discovery. You should definitely check it out. It's a pretty good show. I don't know why I was looking up the USS Defiant.